session. And so what we'll do is we'll just move through every agenda item, and if there are questions that you have, please just stop me. And Superintendent, I know you have some staff here. If there are things that you'd like to discuss, please let me know, and we'll go ahead and accommodate all that. All right, of course, we'll open the meeting, and we'll have to approve the agenda and any changes to the agenda. And we do have 3 recognitions on Monday evening. And the first will be the recognition of the Peggy Gorte Bruner finalist and announcement of the recipient presented by former Senator Vince Bruner. 3.2, recognition of the Walker Robinson, Broadmoor Beach High School 2021 Florida High School Athletic Association Division 2A Boys State Champion in the 199-pound weightlifting class, presented by Superintendent Chambers. And then finally, we'll have 3.3, recognition of Choctawhatchee High School Indianette Dance Team 2021 Universal Dance Association National Dance Team Championship, first place gold medalist, small varsity game day division, presented by, again, Superintendent Chambers. We may have visitors, although I don't have any on the agenda. Section 5, administrative and personnel appointments, 5.1. will be the appointment of the Assistant Principal 1 at Crestview High School, recommended by the Superintendent. 5.2, appointment of Assistant Principal 2 at Davidson Middle School, recommended by the Superintendent. 5.3, appointment of Director ESE and Student Services, recommended by the Superintendent. And then 5.4, appointment of Director 1 Curriculum, recommended by the Superintendent. All right, again, we may have public comment, but we're not showing any. We'll know better about that Monday. We have committee and staff reports, this workshop only. Colleagues, you received that information, so I know you've looked over that. Then we move into consent agenda. Section 8 will be the approval of the consent agenda. 8.2 will be minutes of the special session that we held. 8.3 will be appropriation of District 4 School Board member capital outlay funds to Longwood Elementary School in the amount of $5,000, presented by Mr. Tim Bryant and recommended by the Superintendent. 8.4, authorization to appropriate claiming year 2020 Federal Impact Aid Funds voucher number 2 and make a payment in the amount of $11,522 to the charter schools, presented by Mrs. Scallon, Chief Financial Officer, and recommended by the Superintendent. 8.5, authorization to appropriate claiming year 2020 Federal Impact Aid Voucher number 3 and make a payment in the amount of $4,402.25 to charter schools, presented by Mrs. Scallon and recommended by the Superintendent. 8.6, invoices to be approved for payment. 8.7, school donations. 8.8, request to increase purchase order 21002637 to Bearden Electric, presented by Mr. Wyndham, recommended by the Superintendent. 8.9, renewal of tag-on bid for bus cameras, accessories, and installation, recommended by the Superintendent and presented by Mr. Wyndham. I assume that's to go into some of those new buses that we're getting in. That's good. 8.10, tag-on bid purchase over $25,000 to Apple Computer, presented by Mr. Wyndham and recommended by the Superintendent. 8.11, tag-on bid purchase over $25,000 to Apple, again presented by Mr. Wyndham, recommended by the Superintendent. 8.12, tag-on bid purchase over $25,000 to Dell, presented by Mr. Wyndham, recommended by the Superintendent. 8.13, amendment to service agreement number 21-64, Connect ASL Incorporated, presented by Mr. Wyndham and recommended by the Superintendent. 8.14, sell and disposal of surplus property, presented by Mr. Bolton and recommended by the Superintendent. 8.15, cooperative agreement between Florida Diagnostic Learning Resource System, commonly known as Fiddlers, FDLRS, discretionary project in Escambia, Santa Rosa, and Okaloosa counties, submitted by Dr. Heather Willis Doxey, Director, Exceptional Student Education, and recommended by the Superintendent. 8.16, Community Education Summer Driver Education Program presented by Mr. Humphrey and recommended by the superintendent. And then 8.17, course adoptions for the 2021 school year, presented by Denise Berry and recommended by the superintendent. So that takes us through the consent items. Then we go to the superintendent's human resource recommendations. 9.1, this would be administrative leave. 9.2, deferred retirement option. I think you have a list of all those, colleagues. 9.3, out-of-field report, presented by Ms. Karen Peak, recommended by the superintendent. 9.4, personnel recommendations, presented by Dr. Hale, assistant superintendent, and recommended by the superintendent. 9.6, employee transfers, presented by Dr. Hale, recommended by the superintendent. 9.7, employee termination, presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the superintendent. 9.8, employee suspension, presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the superintendent. 9.9, reinstatement reimbursement of sick leave due to line of duty illness. 9.10, leave without pay. And then 9.11, proposed district department reorganization plan, presented by Ms. Scallon, Chief Financial Officer, and recommended by the superintendent for approval. And I noticed there were attachments showing that document, and I appreciate those because we were able, of course, to look at them. All right, colleagues, any questions or comments about that section? All right, Section 10, right now there are no items moved to discussion. Section 11, construction program owners, representatives business, and Dr. Kelly, well, I'm sure will give us some information about that on Monday night. Nothing on Section 12. Section 13, Mr. Attorney, your business, sir.
No report today.
Thank you, sir. All right, Superintendent, Section 14, you're up.
All right. We have a few items that we're going to share. I'm going to share a little bit of information. Mr. Horton will come up, and also Ms. Lightbourne will come up. I do want to share, we have what we would consider two very important dates that are coming up in May. And one is going to be a college and career fair, and the other one is going to be career technical education signing. So just going to talk just a little bit about both of those. The college and career fair is in essence, it's a community event with the Okaloosa Public Schools Foundation. Also, many of our local businesses as well, Career Source as well. So it's everyone coming together to do this. Ms. Vanchek, who's on the Public Schools Foundation, I appreciate you helping being a leader in this, and I think this is going to be a great thing for our students. So this will be held at the Beachside Community Church. It is a spacious venue which will allow our students to come in. We'll be able to be spaced out, as well as the community leaders who will be there. This will occur on May 15th from about 8:30 to 12:30. So we're putting out information to each of the high schools. This is free of charge. Students who are seniors can come, but all students can come as well. So we will literally have some students who would have the ability to talk to some potential employers, so when they graduate, they could be lined up with jobs, but also there'll be some information there from colleges as well as military as well. We will have a keynote speaker who will be there, Brian Barnes from College Board, so that's AP, so that's a big deal. And then also Michelle Burns will also give some words as well. So really appreciate Michelle Burns. She's really been a leader in this as well. But the Public Schools Foundation, Ms. Vanchek, so that's a good job bringing this to our county. And I do want to thank Cindy Gates and Mr. Horton, who are also helping getting all this going. As we get to the second, and I'd call this a major event. So about 2 years ago, we started wanting to do career technical education signing days. So we do sports signing days all the time. But this is something neat too. So celebrating our kids who are either going straight to the workforce in an associated CTE field, or they're going to college in a CTE type of a field as well. And they could even be going into the military and utilizing those skills. So it'll be here in the boardroom on May 19th, 8 o'clock. and we will be recognizing and celebrating those students. So those are two events amongst the many in the month of May that just wanted to highlight. Any questions about either of those events?
Great stuff.
All right. Do want to also give just a little bit of information. Some reports come out every year about top high schools in the nation and top high schools just within the state. And each state does this as well. And there are about 24,000, according to the records that we have, about 24,000 public high schools in the nation, and about 18,000 of those 24 were pulled to get what these rankings are. And then we have about 1,485 public high schools in the state of Florida. And just a little bit of information, Niceville High School ranked number 49 of the state, which is in the top 3% of high schools in the state, but also number 886 nationally, which is also in the top 5 nationally. And I'm not going to give every single percentage, but Fort Walton Beach High School, 145 in the state, which is absolutely fantastic. 2,627 nationally. We have Choctaw, 174th in the state, 3,148 nationally. Crestview High School, 190th in the state. Laurel Hill, 225th in the state. And Baker, 327th in the state. So when you look at the state of Florida, every single one of our high schools are right in the realm of the top 20%. The top 20% in the state of Florida. So I think that's something I know that we are extremely proud of. And I like to use the quote that Miss Martello says, and she says, "From the beach to the barn, everything's important here in Okaloosa County."
That's a good one.
And all of our schools are representing us extremely well. So I know that was an article in the paper, I think maybe a week or so ago, but getting all this information, just thought that was important to share. A little bit of information just on COVID update. Just want to continue to do that. Within our schools, things seem to be going very well as it pertains to the COVID. Within the last week ending April 24th, basically we had one case in 7 schools, so one case per school. So about 7 total cases in essence from our last report, which means about 31 of our schools didn't have any cases. And you continue to get those that information as well, so it's good to see these numbers down. We were purposely waiting to see what would happen after spring break. As I shared before, we had already contacted our surrounding counties to see what happened after spring break, and they really didn't have too much of an uptick at all. So the same thing for us, relatively in the same spot. So we feel good coming through spring break and still in essence in the same area. Mr. Horton and district staff have been working with the local health department, so we're still working with them on vaccination sites. I think Niceville High School is still a centrally located school that we're using. I think they even utilized that yesterday as well. So we'll continue to work with the health department, not only for our own employees, but definitely for our employees, but also for just the community at large, to be a support to our community. I do want to give the board an update on one-to-one devices. So we've talked about this throughout the year. In grades 3 through 5, we've been one-to-one with our Chromebooks. Mr. Horton and his group have done a great job getting that going. And then in K through 2, the iPads took a little bit longer to get in, but we will be one-to-one in K through 2 by the end of the year. So all of the iPads are in. I think we had, Mr. Horton will know the exact number of pallets that came in, but all of those iPads are being distributed out to the schools. So elementary, we will be one-to-one. We'll roll that into next school year, and then the following school year, after we see how all of this goes, we will take the step towards looking at what might it look like at the secondary level. Okay.
Awesome.
May I say something to that?
Please.
Thank you. You mentioned that you've been talking about that for the year. Actually, we've been talking about that for 10-plus years, about one-to-one. So thank you for taking that initiative, doing that, and getting us to that one-to-one. It's been in our technology reports. It's been in a lot of different documents that we're going to work toward that. And honestly, we really haven't. And I know money's an issue, but thank you for getting that done this year and working toward it and making that a priority.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Gardner. And just to say, with the worldwide microchip shortage,
Yes.
that's quite an achievement. Yeah, thank you. All right,
And I'd like to have a clarification on when you say one-to-one, I'm assuming that means initially those would be used in the classroom, because, we have had some that we've issued out and all that. So these are not necessarily for issuing, they're for classroom use? Is that basically it?
Correct.
Okay.
And for testing, that I know that
Testing,
teachers
yeah.
are going to be
Yeah.
thrilled if they don't have to move the
Right.
cowl around.
Right.
And try to share computers and try to get those up and running. So, great job.
Yes, ma'am. All right. And at this time, I'm going to have Ms. Lightborn come forward, just give a little bit of information on testing again. As you know, we're in the testing season.
Right.
Then after that, Mr. Horton's going to come up and give some information.
Okay, excellent. Welcome, Ms. Lightmore.
Thank you. Good morning. So we've started. We are right in the middle of testing. So far, things seem to be going smoothly. Just a reminder to MSO parents, schools have a plan for MSO students to test separate from brick and mortar students. So if they would like to do that, they can. They can also join the brick and mortar students if they don't want to wear a mask and adhere to the requirements of that separate testing area. Also a reminder that seniors are exempt from the assessments for graduation this year only. They'd still have to have a 2.0 GPA and have all the other requirements, the credits, et cetera. But the two testing opportunities, algebra and the reading assessment, do not have to be passed for this year only. What I really want to emphasize for our parents is that although those assessments have been waived, they've been waived for seniors and third graders as far as a retention goes. But everybody else, if you're an 8th grader who's taking algebra, that EOC is still part of your graduation requirement. So it's very important that our students take the algebra EOC and the 10th grade reading assessment very seriously, because they will have to pass that or whatever the alternatives are by the time they graduate. So that's very important.
And might I just interject? And we use these terms and we know what they are, but EOC is end of course exam.
Yes.
So students in those classes must take the end of course exam, is what you're saying, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And there's how many of those kind of courses are there?
Well, algebra is the one that's required for graduation.
All right, very good.
So the other end of course exams, there's geometry, there's
ma'am.
algebra 2, there's one of the histories.
Yes, ma'am.
Those typically count 30% of a student's grade.
There you
This
go.
is all state required.
Right.
This year they've waived that.
Okay.
But what we are doing is we want our students
Sure.
to take that
Yeah.
exam. So
Good
if
point.
they take it and it helps them,
Mhm.
it helps their grade, we will count the
Excellent.
30%. If it hurts their grade, then their grade will be established based on their classroom assessments
Excellent.
and projects.
Very good.
Okay, so I just wanted everybody to really
Yes, thank
understand
you.
that's really important. I don't want people not taking an exam, especially right after they've finished a course, because that's your best opportunity, just because it's waived this year. It's really not unless you're a senior.
And not for algebra.
Algebra specifically is the one that's a big deal,
Right.
okay?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lightmore. All right, Superintendent, you have someone else?
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Horton. Welcome, Mr. Horton.
Thank you. Oh, I thought a week would go by here, but just give you a couple of quick updates. Have sent update, obviously, keeping everyone informed that the Citizens Oversight Committee met last week on Tuesday, reviewed the status of all projects that had been approved by the board for half-cent sales tax. And just as a reminder to folks, we have started the work this year on all of the security projects that are ongoing in the schools. So whether that be fencing or other pieces in terms of front entryway, those are ongoing. You may have noticed next door, there's some roof replacement underway, and that's another part of the critical first piece of projects that were identified. So those are out there and occurring. You'll start to see some signage going up, just notifying families and folks driving by where their tax dollars are going to work to help our schools. And so a young lady worked with me and developed a great template for that. And so there'll be information on those signs in terms of the project that's underway. And accompanying that also, we're working with the Citizens Group and Jacobs Titan on our dashboard that will highlight every project that's out there and provide not only timeline information, but photos, aerial footage, and things like that. So that will be available for that sales tax oversight group before their next meeting.
Well, I appreciate personally those signs. I know the county commissioners have done that with some of the projects that they've been able to do with the other half cent.
Yes, sir.
And very much appreciate that.
Yep, and then we're working with Jacobs Titan is helping us with those, and they'll be placed around, and
Good.
and you'll start to see those, and we'll include those on our dashboard.
Awesome.
I know that, and Mr. Chambers mentioned Dr. Kelly Monday night through the construction meeting on Monday will provide you with some more updates on not only the sales tax projects, but the others that are funded in other ways. The other thing I wanted to mention was just closing out the school year. We've said before in board meetings that the models that the school districts across the state of Florida have employed this year to kind of keep the education piece going, that we refer to as My School Online, that currently 10% of our kids are in. Those models, it's been very clear, are not funded by the state in the format that we've run them this year, and that's not just for Okaloosa, it's for all of the districts. And so you may have seen in the last newsletter that we put out that Mr. Chambers had some information about the program, My School Online, and basically telling parents what their options are going into next fall. And so we've taken another step, and we've reached out to the My School Online families who are 100% My School Online and sent them a letter that has similar information, essentially inviting and encouraging them to make sure they're contacting their school for reentry. And as we believe in the next fall, we'll be opened up and we'll be very much, as much as we can be, back to normal school operations. And knowing that learning loss that occurs sometimes is exacerbated when kids are out in a virtual environment and they're not used to it. So offering our schools administration and school counselors to talk to families to talk about that transition back, because I think it's important for them to be there. We obviously still have virtual options. We always have had virtual options of Okaloosa Online and other providers. And so parents have options, they always will. But I think it's important for us to reach out to families that we really believe need to be in a classroom with teachers to make sure that learning is occurring. So that letter's gone out. We are right now talking about our plans for next year, and looking at, the things that policy or procedure were put in place to help work through the impact of the COVID pandemic, and a lot of great things that were done at the school level on that. But we're working through that process now to reestablish and reset what our schools look like and how we operate, and could there be some things that are maintained and carry over because they're just good practice? There could be. One of the things that we've done this year, and it's taken a while again because supply has been short, but the touchless water fountains. We put a large number of those in schools across the district, and so we're not going to take those back out. Water fountains are ready to be used in the fall, and they can actually be used now by CDC guidelines for sure. But that's a good thing, and the schools have said that's a positive, and so we'll continue in those areas like that. Some of the things we do on the maintenance and cleaning side, best practices that we picked up that we can continue, we will. But those kind of pieces will begin occurring and being formalized as we get through May and into the summer. And we'll make sure we're very upfront and transparent with families about what schools will look like in the fall.
Awesome.
Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Horton.
Thank you.
All right, Superintendent, anything for us?
All right, and there's two other quick items. I do want to say, so as we know, we have about a month left of this school year. And we've talked about it before, but to get through this school year, it has literally taken everybody working together to do this. And I do want to thank, want to thank Ms. Appleberg. I want to thank Patrick back there. I think working through this school year together with our union has been important, and they haven't all been, yes conversations. Some of them have been difficult conversations, but we've been able to work through issues, and I absolutely appreciate working through issues because it keeps us on the same page. Everything has not been perfect, but I think we've fared fairly well as we've gone through this. So that partnership there, even through some tough situations, which I appreciate. And then the last thing I want to say, as you know, we're in the end of the year. So for a school principal, that means that they have their budget packets. That means they're doing all their recommendations. So they're doing a very good job with that, but none of that can happen without our finance department and our HR department doing what they do. So this is an extremely busy time of the year for those departments, and just appreciate how hard they work and the efficiency at which they work to get, you think about, again, a $400 million operation, 3,500 employees. So when you're, quote, closing out a school year, there's a lot that happens. So I just appreciate what they're doing. That's all I have.
Thank you, Superintendent. Appreciate the information and those reports. All right, board members, so we'll move down to section 15, and we have a school board member travel request. And of course, these now come before the school board because of a change to Florida law. And frankly, I think that's good. So you'll see that one, and we'll have to have a motion and a vote. And then we come to school board members' announcements and requests for information. So let me start over at the far end with Ms. Gardner. Ms. Gardner, do you have anything today?
Just that it's Teacher Appreciation Week, and it's been great to see in the social media what our parents, our community, especially, our community have done a wonderful job feeding our schools and taking care of our teachers. And as Mr. Chambers, you mentioned, we're in the last month of school, and it has been a very, very difficult year for all of our employees, especially our teachers. And let's just not forget that even though it is Teacher Appreciation this week, let's continue to appreciate our teachers until the end of the year, because if there's ever probably one of the most difficult times, and it is those last 4 and 5 weeks with testing, students really not wanting to be there. So again, thank you to our teachers, all of our employees, for what they're doing. And as you said, it has been a difficult year, but being Team Okaloosa, we have done an amazing job getting there. And board meeting maybe a couple months ago, mentioned that it was nice to recognize those winter sports athletes, and I see that we have the spring sports that are going to be. Monday night's going to be a night of a lot of celebration, and look forward to it. So,
All right. Thank you,
great way
Ms.
to end
Gardner.
up the year. Let's thank everybody.
And hopefully, I haven't really had a chance to look at the new state budget that was recently finished in Tallahassee, but along those lines of appreciation to all of our employees that you and the superintendent
Yes.
spoke to, maybe we'll be able to do a more tangible,
Yep.
symbolic appreciation for everything that they had to endure
Absolutely.
this past year.
I was glad to
But
see the governor
We'll
pass
wait to
that.
hear from the finance and the superintendent how all that's supposed to work out.
Maybe they
Okay.
can enjoy this summer just a little bit more if they can get those checks early. So,
Yeah.
All right, Ms. Evanchek.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I want to echo what you said about teacher appreciation, and you're right, the community has really come out and should, and it's been great to see that, and certainly we appreciate everything our teachers are doing. One thing, I went, last week, there was a middle and high school art show held at the fairgrounds, and I got an opportunity to go over there. Wow. And you would think, I know we've always had such talented students, but we always look through things with COVID eyes these days, and I thought maybe they wouldn't have had the opportunity to produce what they normally would. Wrong. Some fabulous pieces. I happened to be there at a time, I didn't even realize it, that the top winners were receiving their awards, so I got to actually meet some of those student artists, which is the best part, and talk with them about their pieces, their goals, how they came up with it. So many great ones, but there was one exhibit by a student who use plaster sculptures to represent homelessness that absolutely just stunned me that this student did that. And I posted some of those pictures I took of that with the student on my Facebook page because all of them were great, but in this time and that particular topic, and I just want to, her name is Kelly Holgan. She's a Choctaw student, and it was amazing that she did all that. And
Gives you chills when you see it. I mean, it's just-
unbelievable what she did. I mean, it looks like a professional museum piece that she did. So, but all of them were fantastic, and I want to thank those art teachers trying to get that done during these times. Really a challenge, but that was great. The next thing is from the Public Schools Foundation. First of all, our last meeting, we started the transition with Mrs. Gates retiring, that Mr. Horton's coming in, and we've been welcoming him. He's coming right into it. We've already worked on several things. But on the Take Stock in Children piece, we do need mentors. We have a lot of students who are qualifying for this program. As you know, they get a Bright Future Scholarship if they make it through the program all 4 years, but we do need some mentors. So if anyone out there is interested in mentoring a student, it's just an hour a week that you have to be with the student. And please contact the foundation and we'll get you set up with that. The other thing on the college and career fair I'd like to add, Mr. Chambers, just one little piece, is that transportation is being provided from anywhere in the district. So we know that it's being held in the south end in Fort Walton Beach, but we have buses. The foundation's paying for buses and bus drivers that day. So the students in our north end schools, please, get that. So it's all the information is in a flyer that's on our website at every school. Every guidance counselor has it. And so if they need a ride, that's not a problem. We'll get them there, and we're going to even feed them. We're going to have prizes. So it's a really great day for those students. And the final thing that I want to mention has to do with a former student that I am just overly proud. And I know I get up here and talk a lot about students and former students, but I don't typically watch the NFL draft. That's just not something. I love sports, but that's not something that tends to be on my to-do list. But this time I watched it. I watched 2 different nights, the first round and the second round, every minute, because I had a particular interest in a former student of mine named Richie Grant. And Mr. Superintendent, I know that you were his principal at Pryor Middle School when he was there, and I think all of us that have ever been around or worked with Richie Grant knew we had a star in the making way back when. We followed his college career at UCF. I had mentioned back a few months ago that he was a finalist for the Jim Thorpe Defensive Award. And so on Friday night, the 40th pick, he signed with the Atlanta Falcons to play professional football. And I am thrilled. It's an honor for not only the schools. I know he went to Wright, to Pryor, to Choctaw, but also for all of Okaloosa County to be proud of this young man. And if you don't know Mr. Richie Grant, not only is he a superb athlete, first of all, he has a smile that would light up this room, any room, but he has such a great work ethic, and I know that from him being in my English class. He has spoken publicly, so I feel comfortable in saying that he had a difficult home situation coming up through school, and he said as he was preparing for the draft that one of his goals throughout the entire time leading into getting a job in the NFL was to elevate the status of his family, who struggled with some poverty. And that tells you a lot right there about Richie Grant. And I'm thrilled. I see me on the road to Atlanta in the fall. So I think Okaloosa County should be very proud of Mr. Grant. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak on
I bet
that.
you have already purchased your Atlanta Falcon.
I tried. I was
attire.
telling before we started,
Had to tell.
I had my husband out yesterday because I wanted to bring some stuff. Y'all know I usually come, and for some reason, our area doesn't have that much, but he was telling everybody when he said, y'all better get some Atlanta Falcon stuff in here because we've got Richie. So I will have my stuff ready when it's time. Thank you.
And Mr. Vanchek, I wanted to add one thing.
Certainly.
As amazing as this is, there's only one thing that was wrong with it.
I know he didn't go to the Cowboys.
With the
And
43rd
I
day.
watched it because I thought you were gonna, yeah, I knew you wanted them to go to the Cowboys,
Yeah,
but,
There's plenty of Cowboys apparel here in our area. so that
yes,
would've worked.
that's amazing too. And I thought for a minute he might be going over to Jacksonville. But I kind of, I mean, the Cowboys are good and I would have been excited with that, but a little bit easier of a road trip to Atlanta.
Atlanta's closer.
Yeah, then actually there's about an hour's flight to Atlanta that's even better, so.
She has checked it out.
I've checked it out.
All right, very good. Thank you, Ms. Vancheck. And the one thing I'd like to add, Superintendent, is to tell you that I know that we all appreciate the information that you've given us here. I think it was a request earlier regarding the senior honors and the graduation ceremony. So colleagues, we have that now, and
Right.
we'll be able to coordinate our schedules and attend those as we will. All right, so that takes us through the board members' business. Item 16, we do have public comment, should there be any. And then finally, on section 17, we do have a public hearing. At this juncture, Mr. Superintendent, Mr. Attorney, unless you have anything else, if there's anything from the staff or anyone else, I'm not seeing it.
I just have one request on this, these ceremonies and everything. Since we have to be outside, can y'all put in a request on the weather? That the temperature, get it down to, and that humidity down so that we can,
We'll see what we can do.
thank you.
And can
All
I
right,
add-
well, with that,
I
we're
can
going to
later.
adjourn.
I
Thank
can
you.
do it later.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Excellent.
Do we need to?